so many people give in to the fact that, oh, I've been dealt a bad break in life, and you know what? That's a reason why I can't move forward. That's not a good enough reason. We've all been dealt bad things in our life. I mean, I had my foot amputated in 2018. I had my leg amputated in 2020. And I'll be honest with you, Davi, I think I've done more living in the 12 years that I've been dying of cancer than I've done in my entire life. So don't think that something that bad has happened to you, that you can't use that. You can't flip that around to make something positive. You can, and you should. Again, it goes back to what we were talking about, our unique gifts, our talents in life. You have those. I can't think of a worse thing in life than going back to our Creator at the end of our life and saying, hey, you gave me these gifts and talents, and I didn't do anything with them. I didn't use them for the betterment of another human being.
Hello, welcome to today's episode of Creativity Boost Podcast. Today, I have the pleasure to bring before you someone that is really inspirational. He's a cancer warrior. He's an author of several books. He's been a SWAT negotiator. He's also been a top marketing executive. And he's also so many other things that time will fail me to talk about. His name is Terry Tucker, and it's a pleasure to have him on the show today. Hi, Terry. How you doing?
I'm great, Davi. Thanks for having me on. I'm really looking forward to talking with you today.
Yeah, it's so awesome to finally get the chance to have you on the show. And I was just talking about your profile of your many different achievements, and I believe I maybe missed one or two things. Do you want to fill us in on who you are and what you're about?
Sure. So I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I am the oldest of three boys. You can't tell this from looking at me or from my voice, but I'm 6'8" tall, and actually went to college on a basketball scholarship.
Wow.
When I graduated from college, I moved home to find a job. I'm really going to date myself now, but this was long before the internet was available to help people find employment. Fortunately, I found that first job in the corporate headquarters of Wendy's International, the hamburger chain, in their marketing department. Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was kind of their heyday. After that, I switched and I moved to hospital administration. And then I made another major pivot in my life. And you mentioned I was a SWAT hostage negotiator. I started out as a police officer and then moved onto the SWAT team. After that, I had a school security consulting business, coached girls high school basketball. As you mentioned, I've written a few books. And then for the last 12 years now, I've been battling this rare form of cancer, this rare form of melanoma.
Wow, that's awesome to know about you, and it's so exciting to meet you and to learn about what you're doing and all the phenomenal achievements you've made so far. Today we're going to be talking about something that I tagged how to stay creative in difficult times. And when I met you, I felt that inspiration, that fire, that boost, that energy that you carried around you, that aura that you carried around you, that just kept you going despite the difficulties that you've experienced in the past 12 years. You've been able to push yourself forward. You've been able to create the kind of experience you want to have. You've been able to create the kind of life that you want to live. You've been able to create your atmosphere. A lot of other people who go through a similar situation that you have gone through would cave in, would give up, would shut down their lives. But you have stayed creative, in my estimation. How have you been able to manage that?
Yeah, I wish every day was as great as you just described, because it hasn't been. But you're right. I mean, I think we have a choice in life. We can, for example, when I have to go to treatment for my cancer, do I look at it as I have to go to treatment, or do I get to go to treatment? What do we find positive in the experiences that we have in life? And the things that have gotten me through this are what I call my 3 F's, which are my faith, my family, and my friends. I have a very strong belief in God, and that certainly has kept me going. I have a wife and a daughter who have been there for me for 12 years to support me, to watch over me, to help me get through this. And I have great friends that have done the same thing. I think a lot of times in life, we think that we do something, whether we do it by ourselves, that it's something we did. We're all part of a team. We're all part of something that's bigger than us. And I think that's one thing that I learned when I was playing basketball. I started playing basketball when I was 9 years old and played all the way up until I graduated from college when I was 21. And that's what I learned from team sports, was the importance of being part of something that's bigger than yourself. You realize on a team that if you don't do your job, not only do you let yourself down, but you let your teammates down, your coaches down, your fans down, etc. And if you think about it, the biggest team game that we all play is this game of life.
Awesome. Now, there's something that you said that really, fascinates me about your faith, about your friends, and about your family. Now, how has that helped you to stay creative? Because the reason I brought you on this show is to help people who are facing one difficulty or the other, something that's blocking them from manifesting their creativity in one form or in one way or the other. For these people to get inspired to function in the realm that they should be functioning as far as creativity is concerned. So how has these three things helped you to manifest your creativity?
Yeah, it's funny because I probably have put a limiting belief on myself that I was not a creative individual. That wasn't, creativity wasn't one of the things, wasn't one of the attributes that God gave me. Gave me height, and when I was getting double doses of height, I wasn't getting creativity. But you realize that we're all creative in our own interesting way, our own special way. My creativity is probably not your creativity, and your creativity is probably not somebody else's. But I've used these things. I've been open with my family. I've been open with my friends. And I've certainly asked my God, my faith, to say, okay, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to take this ugliness, this illness, and turn it into something positive? And one of the ways I've done that is through writing. I wrote a book in 2020 during the COVID pandemic when I had my leg amputated. And it wasn't something that I wanted to do. It was really something that I kind of put off, that I pushed away. It was like, no, I don't think I should write a book. I don't think I should do this. And there's kind of an old joke that goes, when we talk to God, it's called prayer. When God talks to us, it's called schizophrenia. So God never told me to write a book, but I think what God did was say, look, I'm going to put people in your path, a number of people that are going to make the same suggestion. You should write a book. You should write a book. You should write a book. And so I would think I was smart enough to realize that that was occurring. And, I don't have any great revelation. How do you write a book, Terry? People have asked me that. It was just discipline of putting words on paper every day. And I made a rule for myself that every day I would write at least one page, and that I would not edit anything that I wrote until I felt that I had a first draft. And Davi, there were times where I would write terrible stuff, garbage. I knew it would never make it in a book. But then the next day, I would write something better. And I thought, well, maybe that will. And so it's just a constant disciplining yourself to say, okay, this is a creative thing that I'm going to do, and I'm just going to take it one step at a time, one day at a time. And that's how I ended up writing my first book.
Wow, that's amazing. And I can definitely relate to what you said about writing a book. And some days it's not so good, some days it's good, some days you're able to blurt out 1,000 words, some days you can't even cobble out 10 words. You're just
Right.
there trying to figure out what to write. And I want to say something, especially for those who are listening, that whether you're writing a book, whether you're building a machine, whether you're building a spaceship and you want to land it in Mars, whether you're creating a movement, whether you're building a construction property, whether you're developing an app, whatever you're doing, whether you're making clothes, whether you're a fashion designer, in whatever field you find yourself or in whatever you do, the principles of creativity remain the same. They are applicable across fields, across industries, and across geographies. So you may be listening to this, and that aspect of creativity that God has put inside of you may not necessarily be calling you into writing a book. It may be calling you in a different direction, but the principles are the same. And if you're facing a difficult time right now, that gives you all the excuses, valid excuses that you could use to not manifest your creativity, to take your creative side, to take your gifts, skills, and talents to the grave. You have those excuses. Terry is an emblem of inspiration that should give you a reason to make a U-turn from taking your ideas, your gifts, your skills to the grave, to make a U-turn and manifest that creative side of you here on earth. And that brings me to my next question. So what do you think creativity is? We've started off this conversation under the assumption that people understand what it means to be creative, but I'd like to get your perspective on that. Can you help me with that, Terry?
I can certainly try. I think creativity is an outward expression of the goodness, the positivity, the interest, the caring that you have in your life for a specific topic, whatever that be. You mentioned it. Maybe you're a fashion designer. Maybe you're not an author. Maybe you're developing a company. Maybe you're buying property. Maybe whatever it is you're doing. We all have unique gifts and talents. And I think what I find, especially in my faith, you can sort of get overwhelmed. It's like, I just don't know where to start. Start right here, wherever you are. Start today. Don't wait till tomorrow. There's no such thing as a perfect thing. There's no perfect relationship. There's no perfect job. There's nothing perfect in life. Everything has its ups and downs, but you have unique gifts. Identify those gifts. What are you? For example, if you asked me to go be an accountant, I would probably fail miserably at that because numbers are really not my thing. Writing a book, that's more up my alley. Painting, probably not something I could do. But again, helping somebody with language and things like that, that's more where my gifts lie. So figure out what your gifts are and then try things. Do something. I remember reading a book by a man by the name of Jason Pfeiffer. He's the editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur magazine. And he talks about his career progression. He said, I graduated from college and I went to work for a small newspaper. And he said, I wasn't really happy. I wasn't really fulfilled. I wanted to be an editor. And he said, so I went to work for a company and I learned a certain type of editing. And as soon as I learned that, I went to work for another company and learned a different type of editing. And as soon as I learned that, I went to a third company and learned a third type of editing. And that made him marketable to become the editor-in-chief of a fairly fast-growing magazine. So don't feel that you have to get stuck or you have to have it all figured out. You don't. Just start somewhere and see where that takes you in terms of your creativity.
Wow, amazing. So what do you have to say to people who they are trying to figure out what their creative side should be? Because like you said, and rightly so, God has dropped a different aspect of his creativity in each and every one of us. In fact, Myron Golden is one of the famous speakers that I also listen to, and he says this often and often, that God has dropped a different aspect of his creativity in each and every one of us. Now, when God introduced himself in the beginning, he introduced himself as the creative God, the creativity God. And when God created man, the first thing he tells man is to be fruitful. And that word being fruitful, he wasn't talking about procreation, so to say, like many people misconstrue, but he was talking about being productive, which is an offshoot of being creative. And then he says, multiply and replenish the earth. So that's the first thing God told man to do. And then when God created man, he says, let's create him in our image, in our likeness. So God wanted us to function like him. God wanted us to be creative. But there are many people who have yet to figure out that side of them because of difficulties. Maybe they were born into a family, into a home where they can't get the opportunities that they need to do the things they feel they should do. Maybe they are limited with cash. Maybe they are struggling with a situation. Maybe one difficulty or the other. Life is full of ups and downs, and it takes one who has an understanding to be able to weather the storm and still, create the kind of life and the kind of future and make the kind of impact that they want to make. So what do you have to say to people in these kinds of situations that I've described?
Yeah, I mean, we've all been dealt difficulties in life, bad breaks in life. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility, because you get to a point in your life where, yes, you've been dealt these bad things in your life, but now it's your turn to take responsibility and how you're going to move forward. And so many people quit. So many people give up. So many people give in to the fact that, oh, I've been dealt a bad break in life. And you know what? That's a reason why I can't move forward. That's not a good enough reason. We've all been dealt bad things in our life. I mean, I had my foot amputated in 2018. I had my leg amputated in 2020. And I'll be honest with you, Davi, I think I've done more living in the 12 years that I've been dying of cancer than I've done in my entire life. So don't think that something that bad has happened to you, that you can't use that. You can't flip that around to make something positive. You can, and you should. Again, it goes back to what we were talking about, our unique gifts, our talents in life. You have those. I can't think of a worse thing in life than going back to our Creator at the end of our life and saying, hey, you gave me these gifts and talents, and I didn't do anything with them. I didn't use them for the betterment of another human being. I think it's incredibly important for all of us to understand, and I see this all the time. I see people who feel that they are born empty, and that their job, whenever they get out of school, whatever that looks like for them, whatever that occupation or the thing they're doing is, then their job is to fill their empty selves up. They've got to get that great job, make a lot of money, drive the nicest car, live in the nicest house, have the latest gadgets. And Daffy, what I found, it's not that. It's just the opposite. We're not born empty. We're born full. We're born with everything we need to be successful in life, however you define that word for yourself. And our job should be not to fill ourselves up, but to empty ourselves out with our unique gifts and talents, certainly for the betterment of ourselves and of our family, but also for the betterment of our country, our community, our church, whatever you're part of. So don't think your life is about what I should get. Your life should be more about what I can give.
Wow, amazing. Now, this brings me to my next question, because when you described yourself and your experience, you spoke about how you've been a SWAT hostage negotiator, you've been a basketball player, you've been a hospitality person, you've been a marketing executive. I see this as, being purely creative, right? Just to state that for the record, because just being able to reinvent yourself in these different fields, right? How are you able to do that? Like, how are you just changing identities, just like you're changing clothes? What was that like for you? And how can somebody, benefit from that?
Yeah, exactly. And you're right. Yeah, if you kind of look at my resume, it looks like it's all over the place. And there is a little bit of a backstory to it. And when you understand the backstory, the resume looks a little bit like it makes sense. And the backstory is my grandfather, my paternal grandfather on my dad's side, was a Chicago police officer from 1924 to 1954. And he was actually shot in the line of duty with his own gun. It was not a serious injury. He was shot in the ankle. But my dad, who was an infant at the time, always remembered the stories that my grandmother told of that knock on the door of, Mrs. Tucker, grab your son, come with us. Your husband's been shot. So when I expressed an interest in sort of following in my grandfather's footsteps, my dad was absolutely not. You're going to college, you're going to major in business, you're going to get out, get a great job, get married, have 2.4 kids, and live happily ever after. But that's the life my father wanted me to live. That's not the life that I felt I was supposed to live. So when I graduated from college, I had a choice. My father was dying of cancer. I could have said, sorry, Dad, I'm going to go do what I want to do. Or out of love and respect for you, I will do what you want me to do. And that's what I did. So my first two jobs were in business because my father wanted me to. But I made that pivot. I became a police officer after my father died when I was 37 years old, which is pretty old to be getting into that line of work. But one of the things that I'm most proud of in my life is that I never let my dream die. I could have said, you know what? I'm a hospital administrator. I'm making good money. Things are comfortable, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't fulfilled. And so it was, no, I'm going to leave this comfort and I'm going to go do something that's hard and difficult because I believe it's something I'm supposed to do with my life.
Wow. And now that you said what you just said, another thing came to my mind, right? In my work as a thought leader in the creativity space, I've met people who have enough money, more than enough money, or less than enough money. All these people in these two different categories, I've met them, and the same thing resonates from person to person about the fact that it doesn't matter how much you earn. If they're not manifesting their creativity, if they're not living their dreams, there's that vacuum, there's that void. Whether you're making just enough money to take care of your family and take care of your bills, if you're not manifesting your creativity and living out your creative side and turning your ideas and gifts into tangible expression, that fulfillment is lacking. And then there's those who don't even have money and there's still that vacuum. Why is that? Why do you think that problem exists? And that's question number one. Now, the second question is, how come despite this lack of fulfillment, we still have millions of people in droves heading to their graves without unpacking these gifts and ideas and dreams for the world to benefit from?
Yeah, I would agree with you. I would say the vast majority of people never, ever contemplate what it means to be great in their lives. They stay at a surface level. They never think about what they could do. I mean, can you imagine setting a goal that you know you'll probably never reach? But boy, won't it be fun to try to get to that goal? And I think so many people, to answer your first question as well, there's an entrepreneur here in the United States by the name of Ed Mylett, and he talks about the 4 types of people that exist in the world. And he says the first type are the unmotivated. And he said that's the vast majority of people that you will encounter in your life. The second group he talks about are the motivated. And he said it's kind of a carrot and stick approach to life. If I do this, I will get that. It's a life simply based on being motivated, on motivation. It's kind of low level, but it works for a lot of people. The third group he talks about are the inspirational people. The word inspiration coming from 2 words, in spirit. So if you're an inspirational person, you move people with your energy. And then the last group he talks about are the aspirational people. where people aspire to be like you. And I think so many people never, ever think about themselves as a person who's motivated, as a person who can inspire, as a person who other people want to aspire to be like. So you live your entire life without ever thinking or even just dreaming what greatness might look like in your life. And I don't know how to get around that. I always, when I ask people, when I speak to them, I'll sometimes tell that story. And then I'll be like, all right, show of hands, how many people are unmotivated? And nobody pushes their hands up. Nobody says they're unmotivated, but most of the people in the world are unmotivated. But if you have even this much grit in your life, stamina, the willing to go for whatever it is that you think you want to do, imagine, given how many people don't care and don't do that, imagine how far you can go in your life.
Amazing. And so these millions of people that are heading, for their graves with their gifts and ideas and skills unbirthed and unmanifested, I feel the pull to help these people to make a U-turn and manifest their creativity and go from idea to tangible creation and profitable solution. But there's the part of figuring out if this thing will be worth the while, right? There are people who are scared of venturing into their creative side or giving their creative side the expression because they're not sure if it will make them money. They're not sure if it's even worth their effort. They're not sure if people would embrace the idea, if people would key into it or buy into it, or if they would become, a phenomenon, if they will become great, like you mentioned. That's something that could be an end result, an outcome of pursuing your dreams and manifesting your creativity. But many people who end up taking their gifts and ideas and producing it and manifesting it, many of them still do not become great, like in the sense of the way the world identifies greatness. So what do you have to say to these people who are not sure if it will be worth the while, and how do you even know if it's worth the while?
It's worth the while. And I say that for this reason. If there's something in your heart, something in your soul that you believe you're supposed to do, but it scares you, one, you're on the right path. And two, go ahead and do it. Because at the end of your life, the things that you are going to regret are not going to be the things that you did. They're going to be the things that you didn't do. And by then it's going to be too late to go back and do them. And the other thing I'll say about this is, and this took me a while to realize, this wasn't something that I just knew. It took me time to realize that if you're doing something because you're trying to get something, because you're trying to make money, because you're trying, to get to the top of the mountain, or whatever it ends up being, what I learned is it's not the destination. What drives you, what makes you the person you are, is everything you learn along the way. It's the journey. And we've heard that before. It's not the destination, it's the journey. It really is the journey. Because in the journey, you find ways to be more creative. You find ways to be better. You meet people along the way that can help you and mentor you. And when you get to the top of the mountain, when you get to the end of the rainbow, you turn around and you look and you're like, that was my life. That's what I did with my life. I had all these events, all these interactions, all these relationships, and that made the life that I wanted to have.
Absolutely. And what you said really, really resonates with my belief system and how I think, because I believe that all these obstacles, all these setbacks, all these things that hold people from, manifesting their creativity, from deploying their creativity, from releasing their potential, these things are the very things that would make them even better persons in the process if they focus on the journey, right? most times people are fixated on wanting to become the next wonder, the next viral person on social media, the next, millionaire, billionaire success. But all those things are good and they are great when we have them, when they come. But the truth is that creativity should be something we do for the joy of creating. The way I like to liken creativity is akin to the procreation process, right? When a mother wants to give birth to a baby, it's uncomfortable, it's tough, it's a difficult period, right? And even at the point of delivery, she has to push, she has to experience a lot of pain. Why would anyone want to go through that? Most of them do that because of the joy that awaits them on the other side of the pain. The gain of seeing your child, look at you, smile, just the beauty of that experience, the journey of seeing that child also grow, right? I say this because I'm a father and I know how it feels just seeing my child grow right before my face. And I believe that should be the pivotal source of inspiration for creatives who are not very sure why they should venture into something or if it's going to be worth their while. When you're giving birth to a child, you're not even sure if that child will make A's in school. You're not even sure if that child will become the next Bill Gates. But you go through all that pain and struggle for the gain of just seeing that child, holding that child in your arms, and being able to say, "This is my beloved son or my beloved daughter." Now, having said that, I want to ask you a question. You mentioned that you've been privileged to have a great support system around you of family and friends. But I know that there are many creatives who are going through a lot, and part of the challenges they are going through is a lack of support system. Their family do not believe in what they're doing, or their friends do not really believe in what they're doing, but they feel like this thing is something that is making an impact, that is adding value. There are two sides to this coin. There's the side of seeing reason with family and friends. Maybe they have a point that you should actually sit back and listen to and think twice. There's also the second side of this coin that, well, maybe you should just go ahead and pursue your dreams, but do it without this support. Now, what do you recommend for people like this? People who have to go the long haul without family support, without the support of a friend or friends or a community of friends. What way can these people stay the course and keep the creative spark aglow?
I'd say a couple things, because I certainly experienced that with my father not wanting me to go where I felt I was supposed to go in my life. So I've certainly experienced that. And, my father was my hero. I loved him. And he wanted something that was better for me, at least in his mind, what was better for me. And yes, there are those people out there that nobody believes in you. Nobody thinks you're on the right path. And I can tell you, there are people out there, and I think it's amazing because I've had this experience in my life, and I've tried to reciprocate with this experience where I've reached out to people and said, "Hey, you don't know me. You have no idea, but this is what I'm trying to do. Can I have a cup of coffee with you? Can I have 10 minutes of your time to pick your brain and see what you think about this idea?" You would be amazed the number of people that are out there that will tell you, sure, I'd be more than happy to spend some time with you and help you in your direction. So don't think that because your family and your friends aren't there to support you, that you don't have a support system. It's out there, but you're going to have to take a leap of faith. There are going to be some people that be like, "Hey, get away from me. I don't want to have anything to do with you. I'm not going to help you." But there are those people out there that will, if you just ask, that they will help you. They will say, "Sure, I'll give you some of my time and I'll give you my thoughts." And like, "Hey, have you thought about this? Maybe you should move in this direction." Those people exist and they're out there.
Hey, have you ever desired to write a book or become a published author, but somehow you don't know what to write about, you don't know what to call what you write about, you don't know how to write what you want to write about, or you don't know how to finish what you started writing about? Maybe you started writing and you're stuck for years, or maybe you even finished writing, but you don't know what to do with your manuscript, or you don't have a publisher. No one wants to give you a publishing contract, and so you are stuck. Well, I've got good news for you. There are 8 things stopping you from writing your first book, and I have a free training that will help you overcome all of these 8 things holding you back. And once you're able to overcome these 8 things, you'll be able to write your first book in 30 days. Yes, you heard me right, 30 days. After you watch that training, you're going to get my free ebook on your email that will show you how to write a book profitably, even if you hate writing or you don't know what to write, where to start, or how to finish. If you're tired of postponing your desire and dream to become a published author or to write your first book, click the link below this video, register for this training, and watch it right away.
There's more of them out there than you think. So I would encourage you that if you don't have the support system, develop it. Figure out who those people are in whatever field you are interested in that you might get in touch with. And like I said, some of them will be like, no, I'm not talking to you. I don't want to have anything to do with you. But others will be like, sure, I'll give you my time. So develop your own support system if you don't have one right now.
Absolutely. And when we're talking about difficult times, most of the times, we tend to always focus on the impossibility side of the difficulty, forgetting that a difficulty is just an opportunity to innovate. And if you can innovate your way out of a difficulty, if you can create a solution for a problem, it's not really a difficulty, it's an opportunity. It's something that would help you become a better person. It's something that will help you discover yourself in a better level, in a much more greater dimension. So that's why, the Bible says that God always turns what the enemy means for evil, he turns it for good, right? As creatives, we must begin to see these challenges that stare us in the face and tries to block us from moving on and tries to hinder us from manifesting our creative side. We must know how to see them as opportunities to shine even brighter, as opportunities to evolve into something greater. I'm talking about, shining and evolving. What do you have to say about, the process of evolving? Because most times when you start out with something, it doesn't look beautiful at first. It doesn't look brilliant at first. But as you consistently do that thing, it has a better chance of becoming great. And I can say that as an author, when you're writing a book, it doesn't turn out to be great initially. But as you carve it out, as you sculpt it like a sculptor, it turns out to be something beautiful. And I believe you can relate to that as an author yourself. So what do you have to say about being able to nurture your idea even when it's looking ugly, it's looking messy, it's not looking like the brilliant vision that you have pictured? How can you encourage someone over there on the other side to nurture that vision regardless?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm going to answer that with a story. There is an individual here who was an owner of part owner of the Atlanta Hawks, which is in the National Basketball Association. And he's married to a woman by the name of Sarah Blakely. And Sarah Blakely is the president and CEO of an incredibly wealthy, incredibly interesting women's undergarment company called Spanx. And her husband tells this story. He said she started that business with one prototype and $5,000. That's all she had. And she had been a door-to-door facsimile, a fax salesman. And so she knew sales, but she didn't really know anything else about business. She didn't know about finance, about marketing, about human resources and things like that. He makes the comment, he said, if she would have waited until everything was perfect, until she had the marketing figured out, the financing figured out, the human resources, everything figured out. He said, I guarantee you somebody else would have taken that idea and run with it. He said she took that one prototype and that $5,000 and just jumped in and figured it out as she went along. Okay, I'm at a point now where, you know what? I need to market this product. I got to go find somebody who does marketing. And she figured it out as she went along. So many people won't start something because they're afraid that they don't have everything figured out. It's okay. If you don't have everything figured out, it's okay. Take what creativity you have, take what you've created and move forward with it. And as you move forward, you'll figure out what you need next. And that's the time that you go find that person or that group or that company that can help you. And as long as you keep moving the ball down the field, you're growing. You're growing as a person. Your company is growing. Your finances are growing. Your revenue is growing. But understand there's never going to be that perfect time where I've got everything figured out, because it's never going to happen. There's always going to be one more thing that, oh, wait a minute, I need to go get that. No, just take what you've got right now, what you've created, and go do it. And make mistakes. One of the chapters that I wrote in my book is entitled Fail Often, Especially When You're Young. And people look at you like, fail? What do you mean fail? No, fail. And I'm not talking about failing for the sake of failing. I'm talking about failing for the sake of learning. Nelson Mandela, the former president of South Africa, used to say, I never lose. I either learn or I win. So fail and learn and apply it as you continue along your creative journey.
Wow, that's so powerful. Now, you cited an example of a lady that just had a prototype and $5,000, and that is really remarkable. But there are people who have just a prototype and $0, right? So at least she had $5,000 to begin with. So how can people who have nothing, who have no money down, who have, nada, zipola, how can these people take their ideas and make these ideas into something tangible that the world will benefit from?
I would say find somebody else who believes in your creativity, who believes in your idea. You're going to have to sell that idea. And if you've just got a prototype, not only are you going to have to sell that idea, you're going to have to sell yourself. You're going to have to sell yourself to somebody else who has the money, who has the capital, who has the resources, who has the factory, who has whatever you need to take that creative idea and move it forward. So it's not just about selling the item to somebody else. It's about selling yourself. Why should I get into business with you? Are you a reliable individual? Are you a person of good character? Are you somebody I can count on? You need to be those kind of people. Otherwise, people won't want to get into bed with you on your idea. So don't think it's just about selling your idea or your prototype. It's also about selling yourself. And ask yourself this one question: would I want to be in business with me?
Now that you brought it up, I think we should go right into it, because as far as I'm concerned, I believe that creativity trickles down into every facet in life and business, especially in sales. So how can we sell ourselves creatively? How can one sell themselves creatively? How can someone who's a total stranger sell himself to a potential business owner, a potential helper, a potential person that can help that person, take their idea from where it is to where it needs to be? How can creativity come into the mix of selling oneself?
I'm going to answer that question by telling you to sort of step back for a minute. And we have in sales what's called an elevator pitch. In other words, you need to be able to tell me in the amount of time that we're going to be on an elevator together. However, from floor to floor. So in other words, in 30 seconds, you've got to tell me your idea, what you want to do with that idea, why I should be in business with you, and how I can help you. And that's why I say you need to take a step back. You need to think about that elevator pitch, because sometimes that's all you're going to get. You're going to get 30 seconds on an elevator, or 30 seconds in a meeting or at a conference with somebody where you need to pitch that idea. And if you haven't thought that through, if you haven't figured out what the person's going to get out of it, what you bring to the table, what you need, and how they can help you, the time that's gone. It's over. The time is fleeting. So figure out what you bring to the table and what you need and how that person can help you, and refine that into something that you can say to somebody in 30 seconds that might convince them to be in business with you.
Amazing. And I think that also requires some creative juggling of mind and and intellect. So you said something really interesting, that you need to figure out what the person will get out of it. And I think this is something many people tend to leave out when they're trying to get their ideas out there, or get their prototypes, or get their business out there. They are fixated on what they think people, what they want people to get out of it, not what the person wants to get out of it, or what the person can get out of it. They already have this picture in their minds that this is what I want to write about, and people must like it. Instead of finding out, okay, what will people like, or what do people want, so that I can create what they want, and when I'm talking to them about it, it's easy for them to see what they can get out of it. So that is such a profound, angle to being able to sell oneself creatively. Now, there's this question that also came to my mind while we're having this conversation, and it's about your book. I'm aware that you're an author of several books, and one of them is Sustainable Excellence. Can you tell us a bit about Sustainable Excellence? What is that all about?
Yeah, Sustainable Excellence was a book that I wrote while I was healing after I had my leg amputated. And the book was really born out of two conversations that I had. One was with a former player. I coached girls' high school basketball at one point in time. So this first conversation was with a former player that I had coached, who had moved to the area in the United States where my wife and I live with her fiance. And the four of us had dinner one night. And I remember saying to her after dinner that I was excited that she was now living close and I could watch her find and live her purpose. And Davi, she got real quiet for a while. And then she looked at me and she said, "Well, Coach, what do you think my purpose is?" And I said, "I have absolutely no idea what your purpose is. But that's what your life should be about. Finding the reason you were put on the face of this earth, and there is a reason, using your unique gifts and talents and living that reason." So that was one conversation. And then I had a young man reach out to me on social media, and he asked me what were the most important things that I thought that he should learn, not to just be successful in his job or in business, but to be successful in life. And I didn't want to give him the sort of cliches that we all know, get up early, work hard, help others. Not that those aren't important. Those are incredibly important. And I don't want to dismiss them at all. But I wanted to basically go deeper with him, come up with something that was deeper, more meaningful. And so I spent some time and I took some notes, and eventually I kind of had these 10 thoughts, these 10 ideas, these 10 principles. And so I sent the principles to him. And then I stepped back and I was like, I've got a life story that fits underneath that principle, or I know somebody whose life emulates this principle. So like I said, during the months that I was healing after I had my leg amputated, I sat down at the computer every day and I built stories, and they're real stories about real people underneath each of the 10 principles, and that's how Sustainable Excellence came to be.
Wow, that's so fascinating, and I really, really, admire your grit. I admire your persistence despite the pain, the fact that you were healing, some people would, sit over the couch and just, be pitiful about their situation. But you took the battle to the battlefield, and you basically created something out of that situation. You turned a situation that looked like it was a dark situation into a lighted up situation, and that is really amazing. Now, would you like to share 3 of the most profound principles that you talked about in your book, especially as it relates to being able to ignite creativity, problem solving, and innovation skills in our listeners who are listening to us right now?
Yeah, one I gave you a minute ago, which was about failure, about fail often, especially when you're young, because that's the time when you have less responsibility. When you're young, you're probably not in a relationship, you probably don't have children and things like that. So you can afford to make mistakes. And for some reason, there seems to be this kind of thought going on that people that are successful in life somehow have never failed. And I can promise you that the road to success is paved with failure, is paved with people making mistakes. But again, not mistakes for the sense of mistakes, but mistakes for the sense of learning, of understanding, of figuring out different ways to do things differently. I tried that. It didn't work. Well, what else can I do? That's part of creativity. What's another way to do this and get the same results? That's part of being creative. So that's one of the principles. Another principle, and I'm ashamed in a way to say that I've done this, and I know I've done this in my life, and the principle is this: most people think with their fears and their insecurities instead of using their minds. I know I've done that. I know I've been like, oh, maybe I want to start this or get involved in this project. And then I sort of step back and it's like, wait a minute, maybe I don't have enough information, or maybe I'm not smart enough, or what will people think about me if I fail? That's thinking with my fears and insecurities. That's not thinking with my mind. Again, it goes back to what we've been talking about. Just jump in, just take a chance, take a risk and see what happens, because it's amazing how many things happen just because somebody said, you know what, I'm just going to try this and see where it takes me. And that's such an amazing feeling in your life where you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but it seems to be working right now. So I'm just going to keep going with it. So that's another one of the principles. And then the last one I'll say is the importance of, it's basically the principle of what's the most important word in the English language or in any language, and that word is love. And it's not necessarily romantic type of love. It's a love, it's a commitment, it's a desire to do what you're put on this earth to do, to use your gifts and talents, to use your creativity to make the world a better place. And if you love what you're doing, if you love the journey, like we talked about before, it's not the destination, it's the journey. If you love the journey, if you love what you're doing, if you love what you're committed to, it's amazing how great life can be for you.
Wow, that's such an amazing way to say things. That's such an amazing way to view things. I really appreciate you sharing all these wonderful insights on the show. And for you listening on the other side, I'm going to drop the links to this book that he just talked about and some other of his materials on the show notes and on the description below. So you can definitely check it out and grab a copy and become all that you can be as far as sustainable excellence is concerned, and as far as your creativity getting manifested is concerned. I believe that this is a good place to bring down the show or to close the curtain. I want to say thank you so much, Terry Tucker. It's been such an amazing time having this conversation with you. You're such an amazing conversationalist, a powerful speaker, an inspirational speaker, and I believe someone somewhere around the world listening to this is ignited and fired up to manifest their creativity on account of listening to our conversation. So thank you once again. And for you listening on the other side, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for plugging into this episode of Creativity Boost podcast. Next week, I'm going to be dropping another episode, and so I definitely encourage you to subscribe to this channel. If you're watching on YouTube, I'd encourage you to hit the follow button to this podcast on whatever podcast platform that you're listening to, so that you're the first to know when a new episode drops, and so that you never miss any of these amazing juicy conversations that we're having that can stimulate your creativity and activate your potential to its fullest. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share with your family and friend, tell them about the amazing things that we're talking about, and you'll definitely be a part of what we're doing here, making the world a better place through creativity. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to you, Terry, for coming on the show once again. See you next week for my listeners out there, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.